The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. In Depression era Oklahoma, Tom Joad hitchhikes home after being paroled from the state penitentiary. Along the road, he encounters Jim Casey, a preacher Tom remembers from childhood. Casey explains that he is no longer a preacher, having lost his calling. He still believes in the Holy Spirit, but not necessarily the spirituality mandated by organized religion. For Casey, the Holy Spirit is love, not just the love of God or Jesus, but the love of all humans. He maintains that all people are holy, everyone being part of the whole soul of humankind. Tom invites Casey to join him on his walk home. When they arrive at what was once the Joad farm, Tom and Casey find it abandoned. Muley Graves, a Joad neighbor, approaches and tells Tom that his family has been tractored off their land by the bank. They have moved in with his Uncle John and are preparing to leave for California to find work. Tom and Casey spend the night near the deserted farm and head to Uncle John's early the next morning. The family is preparing for their journey to California when Tom and Casey arrive. Casey asks whether he can journey west with the Joads. The Joads agree to take him along. Once their belongings have been sold, everyone except Grandpa is anxious to get started. They pack the truck, but Grandpa has decided he wants to stay on the land and they must drug Grandpa in order to get him in the truck. They are on the highway by dawn. The family stops that first evening next to a migrant couple whose car has broken down. The Wilsons are gracious, offering their tent to Grandpa who has a stroke and dies. Tom and Al fix the Wilsons' car and the two families decide to travel together. In New Mexico, the Wilsons' touring car breaks down again and the families are forced to stop. Grandma's become increasingly ill since Grandpa's death, and Tom suggests the others take the truck and continue on. Ma refuses to go, insisting that the family stay together. She picks up the jack handle to support her point, and the rest of the family gives in. As they reach the desert bordering California, Cyree Wilson becomes so ill that she is unable to continue. The Joads leave the Wilsons and continue across the California desert on their own. Grandma's health continues to deteriorate, and as the truck starts its nighttime trek across the desert, Ma knows that Grandma will not survive. Knowing that they cannot afford to stop, Ma lies in the back of the truck with Grandma. Midway across the desert, Grandma dies. By dawn, the Joads have climbed out of the desert and stopped the truck to gaze down upon the beautiful Bakersfield Valley. Ma tells them that Grandma has passed. She must be buried a pauper because the family does not have enough money to bury her. The Joads stop at the first camp they come to, a dirty hoverville of tents and makeshift shelters. The men are talking to Floyd Knowles, a young man in the camp, when a businessman accompanied by a cop offers them work. When Floyd asks for a wage offer in writing, he is accused of being a Red, and the cop attempts to arrest him. Tom trips the cop and Casey kicks him. When the cop regains consciousness, Casey gives himself up to the law in order to divert attention away from Tom. The Joads immediately leave to avoid any further trouble. The Joads travel south to a government-run camp in Weed Patch. Here, the community governs itself, electing committees to deal with cleanup, discipline, and entertainment. The Joads are comfortable, but after a month are still unable to find any work and realize they must move on. They're offered work picking peaches in Tulare. The camp gate is surrounded by a large group of men shouting and waving. The Joads, escorted through the gate by state police, begin work immediately. They are paid 5 cents a box, not sufficient to feed the family a day's meal. After the first day of picking, Tom wanders outside the ranch. He meets up with Jim Casey, who is leading a strike against the peach orchard owners who want to pay 2.5 cents a box. Tom learns his family is being paid 5 cents because they're working as strike breakers. As the men talk, authorities sneak up, looking for Casey, the presumed leader of the strike. Unprovoked, one of the men strikes Casey on the head, killing him. Without thinking, Tom begins beating Casey's killer. The other men intervene and Tom's nose is broken. He escapes, hiding in the peach orchard until he can reach his house. Marked by his scarred face and broken nose, Tom becomes a fugitive, hidden by his family. The Joads flee the peach ranch at the first daylight. They find work picking cotton and share an empty boxcar with another family, the Wainwrights. Tom hides in a nearby cave where his mother leaves him food. The family is comfortable for a time, earning enough to eat meat daily. One day, however, young Ruthie gets in a fight with another child. She threatens to call her big brother, who is hiding because he has killed 2 men. Ma rushes to tell Tom he must leave for his own safety. Tom agrees and leaves with plans to carry on the social work that Jim Casey has begun. Al gets engaged to 16-year-old Agnes Wainwright. As the cotton picking slows, the rains come. It rains steadily, and the water levels begin to rise. The night that Rose of Sharon goes into labor, the river threatens to flood the boxcar. Pa, Uncle John, Al, and the rest of the men try to build an embankment to contain the river but are unsuccessful. Rose of Sharon's baby is stillborn. After a few days, the rain subsides. Leaving Al and the Wainwrights, the remaining Joads abandon the boxcar for higher ground. They find shelter in an old barn already occupied by a boy and his starving father. The child tells the Joads that his father has not eaten in 6 days and is unable to keep down solid food. Rose of Sharon offers him the breast milk no longer needed for her own child. The others leave the barn as she cradles the dying man to her breast.